Khamzat Chimaev in the co-main event at 180 pounds, it was a catch weight, just obliterates Kevin Holland. I mean, absolutely runs him
It was
over.
impressive as shit. You
In
have
a
to
single,
say that.
I saw this on when I did the post-fight reaction show. So the fight was 2 minutes and 13 seconds long, and I think he had control time for like 152, 153 of it, like, or maybe more, like 156. Some kind of absurd. I mean, like, for basically the entirety of the bout, he had command of it. Okay, BC, your reaction.
We said on Friday, after we found out in real time that he was not going to make weight and that it could potentially be disastrous, and it was. I mean, look, I know Conor McGregor was talking shit that he shouldn't have been in the card. I'm not even sure he should have been in the card. He got lucky that there were other guys who had to make a different weight in my eyes. That sort of, you know, I know Kevin Holland didn't sign up for some catch weight. It wasn't like the Daniel Rodriguez situation, but at least Holland, I mean, we got to give Holland a lot of credit. Whether it was smart in the end or not, it seems like he got a payday and he just went all in and said, all right, let's do this. He calls himself the new cowboy in that regard. But we said the way that you can take a large chunk of that rightful criticism that he's facing and all the questions without answers that we had suddenly of, if this guy's the next big thing, how could you have this type of PR disaster at this moment? This is your showcase to the world of the people that aren't following MMA, right? Of this next big thing coming, and you fucking blew it. That was best case scenario in the cage to tell a lot of us to shut the fuck up. It's still messy, the cleanup here, the cleanup of the reputation of having had this happen, but it's a softer cleanup because the fans wanted Nate versus Tony. The fans weren't like, oh shit, man, I wanted Nate versus Khamzat. Not a single person said that, right? Not a single person were like, no, man, I needed to see Nate get beat up, right? No, that wasn't the case. So Khamzat actually had the best case scenario in terms of a performance. Going out there, leaning on his strengths and reminding you that at his peak, I mean, could you sell him to friends, to casual friends, as like a Khabib who also goes out of his way to try to finish it with strikes? I mean, he looked as freaking nasty and scary as possible in that 2 minutes something seconds.
2 minutes 13. You know what's amazing about him, dude, is like when you think about MMA, like obviously crazy things happen, like, you know, Jose Aldo gets knocked out in 9 seconds and people get taken down and slammed and crazy things happen. But like the reality is, we're talking about very tough guys, highly trained. Khamzat's ability to just overrun the resistance of his opponents is unlike anything I've ever seen. Like Francis has the big knockout power, but I mean like by putting his hands on people and then manipulating them, he overruns their resistance like it doesn't exist.
And gets there faster than Khabib. Now, I'm not going to compare who he's fought. Khabib was on a run of fighting all killers. So maybe when Khamzat is fighting only top 5 guys, there's going to be more resistance. But he gets there faster. You know what I mean? Khabib's like a slow grind to just take away your will and your positioning and your time on the bottom. I mean, he's just pulling, eating at your soul. Dude, Khamzat goes there quick. I mean, he picked up the leech and went over and slammed him right where Dana was sitting on purpose. I mean, the fact that even happened is blowing my mind. So he seems to be next level nasty in terms of he makes the decision to dominate you and you're fucking dominated. Mm-hmm. So in that regard, did he repair a lot? Yeah, long term, I don't have like fear.
Let me ask you about this because I saw this a lot. How much of, what do you say to the folks who are like, he beat Kevin Holland, big deal? That's what I got.
Oh, no. Kevin Holland was riding a win streak, had been reinvented at this weight class, and considering he had no time to prepare for him, and I think rightfully so, Chimaev was suddenly labeled as a villain. Dude, this is not an easy fight, and he went out there and look, and even if he had leaned on his strengths and it took him 3.5 rounds to beat Holland, then maybe you go, okay. No, Luke, he beat him basically instantly. So I actually think, Luke, again, it's going to take a while to repair. And by the way, he's going full on into the heel turn now. And I want to get into that in terms of how he's presenting himself. But I think the performance was so good, it not only took away, me criticizing him, because I tweeted out after he missed weight, I think rightfully so. Dude, we got a lot of questions now about who he really is underneath there. Mm-hmm. Can he hold up to the mental stress of it? All of that. Well, that performance told me to shut up. You know what the performance also did? Told me to stop saying that the Gilbert Burns fight potentially exposed or humanized him. I mean this. I believe Khamzat when he says, I went into that fight looking to brawl and not listen to my coaches because I wanted to prove a point. Gilbert gave him a balls-out performance. Chimaev gets the close victory. Luke, the way he dominated Holland, I'm not saying he could dominate Gilbert Burns in 2 minutes if he really wanted to. I think if we have to revisit that fight with different eyes and just say...
And what do you mean? I mean, like, Gilbert's a skilled operator. Like,
Khamzat's intention was completely different in that fight. His intention was to stand with this high-ranked train killer and
Right, but I
prove
mean, that's right. But dude, that's not a smart way to fight. Like, you can get away with that when you're 24,
So that's what I'm
25.
saying. This performance against Holland, even though I don't think Holland is better than Gilbert Burns, did enough to make me not criticize that performance over Gilbert Burns. I actually believe Khamzat when he fought, a risky, unsafe style on purpose. When you see his ability, and I know Holland's takedown defense is not his biggest strength.
He's a black belt under Travis fucking Luter.
Dude, it was with ease that he dominated him. I mean, with ease. I feel like if they ran back a Gilbert Burns rematch tomorrow and Khamzat brought in the different mindset and had something to prove in the same way that he now had a lot to prove on Saturday after the weigh-in mishap, dude, he might be better than I thought he was. And I thought he was great. Okay,
Yeah.
He might in the long term be better than I thought he was. Do you get that? You don't get that? I'm feeling like I want to revise history now and go back.
I am. The only thing I would say is I think that his ceiling, provided he can make the weight, is going to be higher at welterweight than it is at middleweight. Which isn't to say he couldn't do well at middleweight. God only knows, he might be able to. But I think for his career to really reach potential, he's got to be able to consistently make welterweight. And if this coach is right that his body is now screwed up for whatever reason,
That does change the equation.
It
If we're
changes the
talking
equation a
about
little bit.
only as a middleweight title contender, it doesn't, it doesn't kill your belief that he can win a world title. It does slow it down. For all the people that he's shitting on in the interviews, and he cut monster heel turn type promos, right? Of just being like, I fuck all your guys, I fuck all your boys, I think is what he said. That was interesting. But
fucked all the boys.
He has. But it's like, is this a heel turn out of embarrassment from the criticism he's facing for an unprofessional moment on Friday? Or is this him just saying, fuck it, I'm just going to be me, and this is who I am? Because Chechnya, motherfucker, was what came out of his mouth, Luke. And
you know what? I think it's a little column A, column B. I think there is a little bit of like, fuck you, you don't know me. But the other part is if having covered fighters for 15 years, you would not lose money betting on their sensitivity.
Can he go further commercially as I know you hate this question, but as a babyface or a heel in terms of his casual, presentation to the mainstream?
So we can talk about it now. Here's what's interesting. I think the only fight that makes sense for him at this point, if you just look at the rankings and then just think about viably who can do it. Dude, I think you would agree. The only people at welterweight who are going to give this guy problems are the very best. Usman. I think we'll talk about it. Colby, maybe Leon. I think Leon might get chewed up by a guy like that. But the fight could go long.
What about those hammers that are coming?
Well, okay, but Brady still has some work to do. Rachmanov still has some work to do. I'm talking about the guys who are currently in that upper space. Gilbert, I thought, gave him a good test. Some people think Gilbert won, by the way. I should point that out.
I think we should revisit that in the future more often.
But the point being is only those Gilbert Burns guys. Those are the only ones. And if you just look at it, Leon has unfinished business now with Usman. They're going to fight a third time in England. We're all on board with that. Camera guys, they're just gonna have.
This guy's like.
They're just gonna have a little show behind us here. It's gonna be great. Anyway, but beyond that.
Do you think they're talking about my gut?
But beyond that, so that only leaves really Colby. You could have said he could fight Burns at that upper level, but Burns
I like this topic. Do you want to know why?
So hold on. So if he fights Colby, to answer your question, who is the good guy
Does
there?
he make Colby now the American babyface against the foreign Russian movie villain? That's why I'm wondering. I'm wondering if it's marketably stronger for Khamzat to just stay in this mode of like, fuck you, right? You don't know me. You're never going to know me. It probably is. I wonder if it turned Colby babyface. But in the same topic of is Colby Covington the fight you go to next? Because if people ask me that on HQ on Saturday night, Hakeem Dermish, shout out, right?
I love Hakeem.
Shout out Hakeem Dermish. Are you listening right now in your car, Hakeem? Shout out. What did he ask me? That's really the question. I got it. So if Colby is
to be or not to be?
Because my reaction in real time was, you know what? The UFC doesn't hold grudges all the time. Meaning, Conor McGregor threw a dolly through a window and nearly injured his co-workers, right? He put glass in people's eyes. Shout out to Ray Borg. Scared the shit out of Joanna. And his reward was, here's a A-side starring role in the biggest pay-per-view fight in the history of the sport. So Luke, under how UFC does things, what's the next best fight for Chimaev next? The winner of Leon versus Usman 3. He's so good, and he just showed you that again against Holland, that I don't think he has to do anything but pass go and get ready for the title shot. But your idea of Colby is not only interesting style-wise, not only does it make sense personality-wise as a pay-per-view main event, I think it does, but Luke, is there a receipt, a punishment that Khamzat's going to have to face for what happened behind the scenes when talking to Hunter Campbell and Dana White?
So,
because that's not the fights that they wanted to put out on Saturday.
I don't think so. Now, what they may do is restrict whatever weight class he competes in. That might be possible, because what they don't want is you showing up on fight week unable to make your contracted weight. But I actually asked this on Twitter on, I think, Saturday afternoon. I was like, when was the last time the UFC punished one of their own guys? And the answer was, oh, they cut Luis Pena for the domestic violence allegations.
Yes.
The charges, actually. He was charged. But the
Miguel
point,
Torres got let go, too.
okay, but that's a long time ago. My point being is, right, but they let him go. They let Pena go.
John Jones never gets any punishment.
This is my point. Internally, who was somebody that they fined or punished that they wanted to keep on the roster? That's what I'm talking about. And the answer is I can't really remember the last time. I mean, they fined Nate Diaz in like 2015 or 2014 for language. There's probably been a couple ones since then.
Well, you know,
but
when,
to answer
when
your question,
Amanda
are they
couldn't
going to do anything to Khamzat? They're not going to do shit.
when Amanda couldn't make weight against Valentina, the first time they tried the rematch, Dana said she'd never headline a card again, and that didn't hold up.
Well, they really
so
stuck
Dana's
it to
becoming
her, huh?
that parent like you are probably, Luke, where you're just like, I'm going to tell you what not to do, but I don't care if you do it.
Only when I'm tired.
I mean, she's so cute. How could you?
It's hard
how
to
could
say.
you tell off?
Hard
too?
to say no to Violetta.
Okay, so there's probably a soft punishment or toll he'll have to pay, right?
Again,
Meaning,
I think they're going to have to. His weight thing is the only factor here that matters. Can you make welterweight consistently?
I guess,
End of story.
Okay, so my question would have been to you: is he so great, and the Holland fight only further embellished that the only fight is a title fight in some form, and how much more do we have to learn about his ability? I guess a lot, because he's just steamrolling.
So this is what I
these
said
guys,
on
right?
Friday. That's what I said on Saturday night. Tell me if you agree. Now, Francis has that dim mock one punch insane power. But again, in terms of a guy who can just fucking bend steel, in terms of a guy whose first round ability to just manhandle guys, Khamzat Chimaev is your best first round fighter in MMA. Like, the way he just bulldozes resistance is unheard of. A guy like that is tough up front. But how he looks later in fights, to me, remains a question. This is why you need someone like a Colby or a Gilbert, someone who, at least in the case of Colby, we don't know, but we think could stand up to that resistance and then try the fight later. I do wonder what it looks like when he's in the 4th and 5th round versus the 1st and 2nd.
It's interesting.
1st and 2nd, he's untouchable.
So in the long run, could this, if this leads to a slower string of matchmaking, I mean, I was trying to argue that he's so great, you put him in the title shot now, no matter what, even if he did miss weight. Maybe it's better for him that he gets these tests before the title level in the long run. So maybe a Colby fight, which they can use his brand, which is hot right now and has not faltered, it seemed, even with the egregious weight miss. I mean, that's a pay-per-view main event, is it not?
So here's
is
the thing.
Colby versus, yes or no? Colby versus Khamzat is a pay-per-view main event.
It could be.
Hell yeah, it is.
But you're making a claim that he repaired as much as he could. I thought that was true, but we've been off in terms of the reading relative to the fan base about Khamzat. They were loving him before the Gilbert Burns fight, and then afterwards they're like, oh, he's not as good as I thought he was. I'm like, are you fucking high? Like, but then that's where they were, and now everything has kind of gone even worse. They're like, oh, and he can't make weight. He's a dirtbag. He's not professional. I never want to see him again. I don't believe that last part. And we're kind of like, wow, he really redeemed himself. In the actual, if you actually polled MMA fans, did he redeem himself? I wonder about that.
I mean, it's a big sin he committed. I mean, I still don't understand it. It's a big sin he committed. Tried his best to clean it up. He may be better off long run as a heel, as I mentioned. But let's be honest about this. Tyson Fury can't travel to the States right now because of his affiliation with Daniel Kinahan. Mm-hmm. The more Khamzat rises in the public eye, and this weekend, you know, even though it didn't go perfect, he rose in the public eye in terms of exposure, and now you know his name if you didn't. When is potentially the Ramzan Kadyrov stuff going to catch up with him in some form, or are we harping on something that, I mean, it's fights, it shouldn't matter. What is our role in this?
To tell the audience about his affiliations, because he has an affiliation, seemingly a very direct one, with a murderous dictator and tyrant who is forbidden from doing business with people in the United States.
And you see the celebration videos that Ramzan and his team put out after the win?
Yeah, I'm sure they did. So, like, again, the question is, like, is he forced into these relationships? Like, one never knows. There's always a degree of ambiguity, but audience gets to decide for themselves whether they care. However, the U.S. government might decide for themselves that they have something to say about that and then restrict anyone's business to have any kind of relationship and then do business here as well. Like, it took a while for the MTK thing to finally catch up to Tyson Fury, but it did. So we'll see.
UFC's got Fight Island. They can put any fight.
They can just go wherever they want.
Maybe we'll get UFC Fight Night Chechnya.
I doubt that. Okay.
Okay.
But one never knows. One never knows.
Well, this hammer is here, Luke.
You need a bag of hammers that the Malka crew just carries around for you.
Yeah. Is there any fight that's not the title or Colby that makes sense? And if there is, it's going to play
Only
up.
185.
They're going to play up to our fear of whether he can actually make it. How are they going to be sure? So he's going to have to make 170 in a non-title fight next to give them the confidence to place him against.
That's why the Colby fight's important, because it gives him the
Usman-Leon.
allowance to make 171. Gives him just a little bit of room to play with.
I want to see how great he can be on the title level at 170 before I'm ready to flip the script. And I think he's the same, because they did ask him, do you want Robert Whitaker? And did you hear his response? It kind of surprised me.
He really likes Robert
that
Whitaker.
He talked up Whitaker. He's like, I'd rather train with him because he's a good guy, unlike all these bad guys they want me to fight. That was a little weird that he bent the knee so quickly, right?
Well, Robert Whitaker is a fighter that people like. He is
living legend.
He is extremely good. He is a very great fighter, and I understand that reverence. Actually, to me, that was I felt that a little bit. I responded to it. I thought that was a nice little sentiment from Khamzat.
You think Dana's upset at him?
I'm sure Dana is fucking pissed that, like, dude, this is what you and Khamzat are the same. Like, when we're having conversations, we'll be like, yo, man, I really like green apple. That's my favorite kind of apple. He'd be like, yo. I'm high off Delta 8s, and let me tell you about this Instagram feed I'm following on OnlyPipes or whatever the fuck you're doing. And we're like, we just met this person. Why would you say this? You like to roll the grenade in. Khamzat rolled the grenade into UFC 279 Fight Week. He just rolled the fucking grenade and blew up everything. I guess in that sense, Dana's pissed. But like beyond that, I don't know. I doubt it. I really doubt it.
There you go. I got to hit the head really bad. I got to take a whiz.
We have more show.
Okay. Maybe you can song and dance
Just go, man. Just go on yourself.
Right now?
Just pee. Just pee.
All right.
Do you want to go? I have to piss too, but that makes me.
I mean, what if we get the crew in here to just
There's no podcast where two guys in their 40s are like, I have to pee.
All right. Oh, do you think Gaff could turn off my mic, or we're gonna have a Naked Gun moment?
I think we should hear you fart in the urinal. That's really what I want. God.
All right.
All right, or just you can just walk in front of the camera. It's like a fucking oaf that you are. Hurry up, please. Why are you walking? Run. All right, so let's start the next one here just a little bit. Topic number 4. We'll do as BC rolls in. We'll come back to him. So then we had the Daniel Rodriguez versus Li Jingliang fight. Let me pull up the stats from this if I can. Oh, last thing on this, very quickly. Last thing on this for the Chimaev and Holland fight. I had said this on the Saturday reaction show very quickly, which was that he had blanked him in the stat sheets, that Holland didn't have any offense that was measurable. He had no takedowns, no significant strikes, no punches, nothing. There was it was a 0 across the board. And I had someone write back to me saying that wasn't impressive. Folks, okay, you're allowed to make any determination you want about how significant it is that Chimaev beat an opponent of the quality of Kevin Holland. I actually think Kevin Holland's a very good fighter. It's a very quality win. It's not a championship level win, but it's a very good win. Nevertheless, I look at stat sheets all day, every day in MMA, particularly from Fight Metric. I think there's less than 10 total ever since they've been measuring it, where you can double check that, but the number of times that you can walk up on a stat sheet where someone blanked the other opponent, which I think they call being punked, is extremely limited in number. So to do that as effortlessly as he did in that late switch opponent case with an opponent who was not smaller than him, just to be very clear, that is very, very impressive.